Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Hello and welcome to the Center for Land Warfare Studies YouTube channel. Today we are going to have a podcast with the DG Air Defense, Lieutenant General Sumer Evan Dikuna, Sena Medal. He is part of the series of podcasts which we are doing with our apex leaders of the Indian Army who are heading the arms and services as part of our Get to Know Your Army Well. Welcome to this podcast, General Dikuna.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, so before I dive into the questions, I would like to briefly introduce you all to General Dikuna. General Dikuna was commissioned in the IMA in December 1990. Thereafter, he has done all professional courses as such senior distinguished military leaders are supposed to be doing. He has commanded a AD Missile Regiment, OSA AK. He will tell about this particular regiment as we go along in this particular podcast. He's also commanded a AD Brigade. And above all, he has the distinction of commanding GOs, the MP sub-area, which is in Bhopal. So after this distinguished tenure of his, he is now heading the Air Defense Corps. With this brief background, let's move into the question and answer sessions. My first question would be kind of a warm-up question to you, General Dikuna, because I would like you to basically cover, in general terms, as a layman would understand, about the Indian Army Air Defense capabilities and how are we meeting the various challenges of this particular corps.
So, it is like this that a capability to the Army Air Defense is basically, it grows, it's evolutionary, and it also is based on threat. Okay. So, as the threats evolved, so through each, conflict globally, so first we had just guns and shoulder-fired missiles. Then the threat, there was a dynamic threat. Then you went to a limited standoff threat, which was envisaged in the first Gulf War. So for that, you had to go into, a greater range of missiles where you had maybe the Akash system. Okay. Then you went into the next Gulf War where you had a standoff threat. So the standoff threat now manifested in a different domain where you had to have something like the QR SAM and the MR SAM. And then when you went into enhanced ranges, then you had something like the S-400. So with each conflict came a different threat, and as a result, the Indian Army Air Defense has also, been changing at each step to keep in step with threats. And the current conflict, which you see in Nagorno-Karabakh or in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that has made us realize that we now have another threat in the form of the drone or the UAS domain, and its requirement to look at the counter UAS capability. So today the current conflict has made us realize that this threat is a very potent threat, and also that between we must realize that when you talk of air defense, the Indian Air Force is the primary responder and responsible for the air defense of the country, whereas the Army Air Defense is absolutely focused towards the TBA, the Tactical Battle Area, okay, where we provide protection to all VAVP in the Tactical Battle Area. And hence this current conflict has made us realize that there is no silver bullet solution for the counter UAS threat, and we have to have various capabilities in that domain, which I would discuss with you a little later. The challenge today lies in terms of quantity and adequacy. This current conflict has made us realize that as you have a greater plethora of different types of air defense weapon systems, you would force air forces to fly higher. And I think that, where over the years, we spoke of a favorable control of air by air superiority, then favorable air situation. Today, I think it is denial of air.
Okay.
So, as you have a greater plethora of air defense, ground-based air defense weapon systems, the enemy is forced to fly higher, and his blue skies go higher, and the air littorals come down. And I think that this concept of air denial, sir, is very important, so that we increase the density of air defense, ground-based air defense on the ground, both for point defense, that is at the terminal end, and in the area air defense domain.
Two quick questions before we move on to the larger issues. You spoke about 2-3 issues about plethora of equipment which the air defense of India has. It has been seen that we were primarily US, earlier USSR, now Russia heavy equipment. Has there been now any effort to transform or go towards a different set of equipment, or we are still based our air defense on the Russian systems?
That's a very good question, sir. The whole concept of this revolves around the capability of Atmanirbharta.
Yeah.
And there are two. While the gun and the missile are still in the process of being developed by DRDO, and we have a VSHORADS D&D project which DRDO is progressing very well. But the QR-SAM regiment, which has a range of 30 kilometers, is I think a wonderful capability development, and the Akash. These are two weapon systems, that is the SR-SAM and the QR-SAM, are totally indigenous.
Okay.
We have 4 regiments of the Akash which will roll out, and we have a number of QR-SAM regiments with 30 kilometers range which would roll out in the years ahead. And this is entirely indigenous, sir. So while the Russian equipment is still there, and doing yeoman service to the air defense, but we have our own indigenous capability growing alongside.
Yeah, why I asked this question was because Russia itself is involved in a major war, and supplies, etc., are a major issue. Supply chain management, etc. That was the origin of my asking this particular question. So I suppose the Atmanirbharta would be one such solution to gradually go towards that, but that's not an overnight job.
Yes.
The next issue which I want you to quickly explain to our viewers, because most of them would not know this concept of air denial, because this is something which has come new. In fact, even the I would say even the defense fraternity would be not fully aware of air denial, because earlier we were talking, like you said, favorable air situation, air control, air superiority, etc. So how has this air denial system actually come to full bloom in the Ukraine war? If you could give one example of this, I think then people would be much more related to the issue which you are trying to highlight about air denial.
So you see, sir, in the Russian-Ukraine
and where does the air defense fit into this air denial bit?
Yes, sir. So you see, sir, we all realize that when the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, that the overwhelming superiority of the Russian Air Force would bring conflict closure in as short a time frame as possible. What they didn't realize was that with the capability of the Ukrainian air defense, which was tiered in different ranges, and it had a great amount of density.
Okay.
So, and it was mobile. So as a result, you couldn't pinpoint targets. So they were not pre-designated locations.
Okay.
So first, the air forces had to identify them. They were not at fixed locations. Then by the time they identified them, they moved. Then there was a challenge. So I think that these two things, with a automated command and control infrastructure, helped the Russian density of air defense weapons on ground to force the Russians to fly higher.
Okay.
So as the Ukrainian air defense density on ground became more and more, and that's what Ukraine kept asking, give me more air defense resources, more air defense resources. So as that increased, the Russians had to fly higher. Okay. And as you fly higher, why do you fly higher? Because the blue sky is going higher, and that is the concept of air denial.
Okay.
Otherwise, the blue skies come right down to 100, 150 meters.
Right.
As you go to fly higher,
You'll be detected faster.
you'll be detected faster,
Okay.
and the zone of deniability of airspace increases.
Okay, so it's a very interesting concept, viewers. We will move on to the next question. So, given all these changes which are taking place almost on a daily basis, especially the Russia-Ukraine war, incidentally for the viewers, I would like to inform them that there are a total of 114 conflicts going around in the world, major and minor. Russia and Ukraine and Hamas are one big example of that, but you will be surprised there are 45 in the Middle East. 35 in Africa, 7 in Asia, 6 in Latin America. So that's the kind of spread of conflicts. So it is not just Russia-Ukraine war. So my next question is, given all these changes which are taking place in the way people are fighting wars, air defense has come up as a big factor. Yes. I would say a major factor, and India somehow was lacking as far as this particular element of war was concerned in its development and growth, right? That was kind of you can say because of our dependence on the Russian system, plus there are so many other budgetary constraints, etc. So has there been any effort to now make policy changes, some restructuring, etc.? Are there something being done about this?
You see, so the structures of the air defense formations are totally to meet the operational or requirements of the tactical battle area. Yeah. And in addition, of course, we are continuously analyzing the capability of our adversaries and drawing lessons learned from contemporary conflicts. But the entire current structure of the air defense is modular, and it's plug and play, where it can situate its air defense protection to a VP. In a time frame which manifests itself. However, what we've realized is that this particular UAS and counter UAS threat, well, that would require to be looked at a little closely, because with the proliferation of drones and this capability, there would be a change in philosophy would be required, both for controlling the drones and controlling the counter drones.
Yeah, my next question is actually related to that only. But before I go to that question, I would like to ask you a small doubt which is there also in my mind, and that is about if you look at our transformation of the defense forces which is taking place in terms of theatrization and things like that. I remember late General Rawat's statement that probably air defense would be the first one to get, become a kind of a joint command. And you also mentioned that you work in very close coordination with the Air Force. So, do you think that's going to take off, or it is still work in progress or something like that?
So I think that the moment theatrization takes place, sir, the theater commander's ownership in the battle space would be huge.
Yeah.
And he would require to have a reasonable control on the airspace in his theater. And I think when that happens, the air defense resources on the ground with the air defense resources of the air, starting with the interceptor, would have to be a co-terminus and objective.
Okay, so I'm sure you will cover in greater detail the integration which is taking place between the air defense and the Air Force.
Yes.
So my next question, before we ask that question, is that what's your strategy to counter drones? Drones versus drones versus counter unmanned aircraft systems, and fiber optic drones. There are so many other kinds of drones which are flying around that it is becoming so difficult to actually classify them also.
Yes.
Broadly, you can say there are 3 classifications. One is logistics, the second one is for combat, and the third one is for general purpose, sports, adventure, etc. So what is the threat as far as drones are concerned for air defense, and how is the air defense catering for the threat of the drones?
So, sir, I think that when you talk of the drone threat, sir, it could be in peacetime.
Yeah.
where it has a different connotation, smuggling, weapons, and maybe used for a kamikaze kind of a thing. And then you have conventional operations where this drone could manifest in a recce threat, and it could have a whole a tethered drone, not autonomous drone, as you brought out. But I think that the strategy to counter drones, sir, lies with the Army Air Defense, because the domain in an escalatory matrix to handle this threat should start first with a jammer or a spoofer. Basically, that's a soft kill system. And then move on to the next domain, that would be a direct energy weapon. That could either be the laser and the direct energy weapon in the form of a high power microwave. And then take it to the next step, which would possibly be a gun with fragmentation ammunition, because you require fragmentation ammunition, because the current, if you just have an HE round, you may not be able to hit the drone. But if you have fragmentation, so we would look at the fragmentation ammunition of the gun. And finally, if the cost benefit analysis meets the requirement of a hail mail variety, then you have the VSHORADS. So you look at the spectrum, move from a jammer to a hard kill. And the Army Air Defense today, sir, looks at how do you integrate these technologies, because there is no one particular answer for the drone. So we look at a combination of, or a hybrid between a soft kill and a hard kill, and we've already rolled these systems out, sir. The first system, 7 of them were the integrated drone detection and system, which has a laser and a jammer, which is rolled out in our northern borders. And we are looking at proliferation. It's got a laser, effective laser, and a jammer. And as of yesterday, we brought down a drone very effectively in our 16 core area.
Okay.
And I think that as this proliferation of systems takes place, sir, there is no one answer. You've got to have a capability which looks at and I think the base of this capability lies with detection, sir. Unless you detect, and hence you must have radars which are capable of picking up these small, low RCS drones. And that is 0.001, that is the Mavic drone, the smallest drone which can carry out a recce threat. The first is detection, and then is various methods of being able to bring that drone down. And spoofing and cyber takeover and all what I brought out are all soft kill domains, linked up with hard kill domains. I think we got a good strategy in place.
Okay, so a quick question. There was a news item of yesterday, or day before yesterday, when Trump took over as the president, the new president of United States of America. He said that America is going to build its own Iron Dome, right? So he was talking about missile defense system. Iron Dome system as such was deployed by Israel during the various wars which it has been fighting. But people say that, cost benefit analysis which you just mentioned, between a dud rocket which is coming across to a particular side and Israel deploying Iron Dome, which is a huge cost factor is involved. Do you think that India should also think on these lines of creating an Iron Dome? Because you yourself said that there is a need for an air denial. So if you have air denial, then there will be a switch over to missiles, and our northern adversary, which is very, very, I would say, well endowed with missiles of their own. So we might see the future wars with missiles actually coming into fore. So do you think we need to go in for such systems? Just a off the hat question from my mind.
No, sir, it is like this. That's very interesting. That, but my belief as the DG is that Iron Domes are good for small VAVPs. Small country like Israel can have an Iron Dome.
Yeah.
India, which has a border with Pakistan and China in over 3,000 kilometers with both, to have an Iron Dome would be hugely challenging. To have a coastline of 7,800 kilometers, Iron Dome would be hugely challenging. But an Iron Dome in a particular VAVP, say you're having an RD parade and you want to give an Iron Dome protection, great. That's a possibility.
Okay.
But to extend it and extrapolate it like the Israelis did would be challenging. The Americans are, as it is, got an Iron Dome with 2 oceans on either side. So I think they are reasonably well protected unless you have the ballistic threat. But otherwise, I think an Iron Dome looks after area defense, But in no way, sir, can an Iron Dome take away from point or terminal defense of a VAVP.
Okay.
And this is what the Israelis also realized, that while the Iron Domes were there, their smaller VAVPs still had to have guns and VSHORADS to protect them at the terminal end.
Good. You gave me the cue for guns. So my next question is about the guns. So it is said, it is known also that we are still deploying guns of 50-year-old vintage. So do you think it is high time that we do away with our 40 mm, etc., or I am wrong in stating this particular question to you?
Sir, if this question was asked in 2019,
Yeah.
it was absolutely right.
Okay.
But I think the counter UAS capability, the UAS threat, when you have these small little drones coming in the form of swarms or loiter munitions, sir, to try and use missiles to target them is hugely cost prohibitive.
Okay.
And hence, sir, countries are now going back to the gun.
Okay.
Pan the world, they realize that if you have fragmentation ammunition, either like we have the L70 with the pre-fragmented fuse cartridge, which is capable of getting into small little splinters, it costs something like about maybe $100. Whereas you use a missile, it's about $700 or maybe $1,000.
Yeah.
So I think that every country, sir, to take on the UAV threat or the UAS threat is going to go back to guns.
Okay.
And in guns, you should have either all-weather guns like our L70 or a high rate of fire guns like the Zoo, and possibly even the rail gun with a slow rate of fire but with high amount of accuracy would be highly effective against this new threat. And it has to be with a combination of smart ammunition, sir.
Okay.
So while we have got the 40 mm and the 23 mm in the current inventory of the air defense, we look at complementing this gun capability, the fragmentation ammunition. And in the successor gun, we are looking at something called that smart ammunition,
Okay.
which has a high kill probability with a reduced number of rounds. So what happens is that our logistic, the number of rounds to achieve the same objective would be far, far lower. Like just to give you an example, so we were doing a study on this, and the smart ammunition, one round of smart ammunition compensates 17 rounds of present 40 mm HE.
Okay. So with that, a quick question, because I would not like this to just go on in a very, very highly technical manner. I was reading an article in Foreign Affairs magazine, and where they were talking of precision mass attacks. That means you have precision also, but you also have mass attacks. So do you think now that the things like swarm drones will need something like that, so you don't waste too much of your ammunition, but yet you need the mass to destroy the swarm? Because if you get a swarm attack, let's say on your gun position, some of them will succeed and probably damage you. So how do you think that you would be able to basically protect against a swarm drone kind of a threat to your essential positions, etc., especially gun positions, radars? There are so many critical stations which are there, which you need to protect if you want to attack, or if you want to give the proper air defense protection.
So I since you brought out radars, sir, I think that having a passive capability along with an active capability is a very important facet of preventing a CAD or a DAD attack on our radars. So I think that's as far as the identification.
Could you just elaborate on the CAD and DAD, because most of the people who are non-defense background may not understand what is CAD.
So what happens, sir, is that the first target of effective counter AD operations is to attack your radars.
Yeah.
So you could either suppress them or you could destroy them.
Okay.
So that is CAD and DAD. So similarly, as you rightly brought up, the drone would first try and target a radar.
Correct.
So the best is that if you have an active radar, he's going to target you. So you must have a passive capability.
Okay.
So a passive radar must work in conjunction with an active radar, so that you only switch on the active radar when it becomes a critical phase of battle.
Right.
So I think that when we don't emit, a passive system is the answer.
So that's one method to protect.
To protect your. The second part is, sir, that when you have this swarm attack, sir. So what we perceive, sir, is fragmentation capability. Yes, definitely one. Secondly, in our we've got something called a vehicle mounted counter swarm drone system, sir.
Okay.
So we perceive that the threat to mechanized columns specifically, and as you brought out gun areas, this swarm is highly effective against them.
Right.
So we put out an RFI to the industry, sir, which has come up with fascinating solutions.
Okay.
Wherein they have a vehicle mounted counter swarm drone system, and you have clusters of guided and unguided rockets, which will go in an array outwards.
Okay, so that's what I was talking of, precision mass attacks. So now people are talking of, earlier it used to be mass attacks, now you have got to have precision plus the mass added
Yes.
to it. So I think the drones are really changing the way people are going to fight in the future. Well, my next question to you is about VSHORADS. So how are we integrating this with our overall air defense plans?
So you see, sir, it is like this, that the VSHORADS is an extremely potent weapon, sir. And it provides you huge capability because it's so easy to move.
Okay. Yeah, essentially it's light.
So you could use it conventionally in an air ambush role, but it's very important, sir, that while you may put these VSHORADS out, to ensure that they actually meet their objective, an effective control and reporting system must be integrated with the VSHORADS.
Okay.
That would ensure maximum of freedom of action for our own air resources to operate. So this question is often asked to me, that should we give VSHORADS to the infantry?
Yeah.
And I say it's a good idea, provided the VSHORAD has got a radar, it has a CNR procedure coming from the Akash Tir down to the infantry battalion, and we will give it to the infantry battalion with AD soldiers looking after it. So the VSHORAD should be an integral part of providing protection to as far forward, but it should be controlled with a radar, so that you just don't shoot at any target you see.
Yeah.
And so I think, and presently, sir, the VSHORADs have also dwelt into two domains which we look at very closely in our own inventory. One is the VSHORADs, which is IR based, that is the infrared homing, and the second is the laser. I think these are two very distinctly different domains with complementarity of objectives, so that they don't overlap each other. They have a subtle capability. So where the IR would be impacted by flares, the laser isn't.
Okay.
So that's why today in the Indian Army Air Defense, we look closely at the complementarity of these two capabilities, the laser and the IR.
Okay. So I'll quickly go to the next question, because we are now running out of time. How's the modernization of the Army Air Defense being undertaken? Because as you know, this is the decade of transformation, year of reforms, and this is the thrust of our chief also. So I'm sure you must be also part of that particular momentum which we have to generate, so that we are future ready.
Yes.
So could you just cover aspects related to modernization?
So, as far as the modernization goes, sir, we say that you can't lose out on the conventional capability of having a mix of guns and missiles of various ranges.
Okay.
So when you talk of guns, sir, we are looking at a successor gun to our 40 mm and 23 mm, which would be able to fire smart ammunition.
Okay.
So that's as far as the gun goes. Now you go to the VSHORADs, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at the IR domain and the laser domain, complementarity between two capabilities. Then you come to the next level, that is the SR-SAM, that is we have the Akash weapon system there. Then that is 25 kilometers in range. Then you talk about the next level, you talk of the QR-SAM.
Okay.
So that would have a 30 kilometer range. And finally the MR-SAM, the 70 kilometer range. Now this looks after the conventional threat as we had seen it over the years.
Okay.
Now to meet the modernization and tech transformation in the UAS domain, so we are looking at in first you have the jammer and the spoofer, then you have the direct energy weapons, for which we've got RFPs to the industry that please come up with lasers with higher ranges, Presently, the industry is, we've given them an RFI out for the 2 kilometer laser and the 5 kilometer laser. We've given them an RFI for a 1 kilometer HPM, high power microwave, so that's the next level. Then we've brought them out into the domain of 23 mm and 40 mm fragmentation ammunition. Then we've put in a drone kill system, so where you have a drone on drone or a rocket on drone.
Okay.
And then, as I brought out, then you have the vehicle-mounted counter-swarm drone to tackle your counter-swarm drones in this particular capability. And finally, we are looking also at the kamikaze drone.
Okay.
So that's how you look at the spectrum of threat. As threats have evolved, so we've covered the dynamic threat, we've covered the limited standoff threat, we've covered the standoff threat, and we've covered the UAS threat.
Okay.
And this, in this particular domain, is where the modernization is taking place. And this entire modernization is structured around, sir, what we've been able to achieve after years and years of toil, and that is the rollout of the Akash Tir control and reporting system, sir. The Akash Tir system, sir, actually integrates the surveillance of the Army and the Air Force radars. It integrates in real time the ability to threat evaluate and weapon allocate.
Okay.
I think that capability ensures that we have enhanced logistic stamina, we reduce electronic fratricide, provide flexibility of operation to our Air Force and to our ground forces in the TBA. And I think this is where the whole modernization matrix is finally going to flow out with a centralized control and a decentralized execution. Because what we've realized, sir, that in every conflict, command and control headquarters is targeted innumerable number of times.
That's right.
By various methods.
Yep.
And hence decentralization of the air defense battle at every level would ensure that we meet the operational and the theater commanders' requirements.
Okay, I think we have had a very good conversation on air defense, but I would not let you go without asking you how much is the integration of AI into air defense, especially on your control and reporting system.
I think that's a brilliant question, sir, because as you have huge amount of UAS and counter UAS equipment coming in, unless you have AI and data analytics and white banding of IDs and profiles, you are likely to make mistakes. And I think AI with data analytics is the next step. And as we move from Akash Tir in its current form to the Akash Tir phase 2, we're trying to capture all this. And we are using the AI incubation center, which the Chief of Army Staff inaugurated about a month ago in Bell, Bangalore, as the base to generate this AI infusion into Akash Tir phase 2 with Bell and a couple of other companies like TCS and others.
Thank you very much, General Dikona. I think we have had a very good conversation, and you were very willing to take on the additional fireworks which I gave it to you very well. And with that, viewers, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. Jai Hind.